Hey, ladies, welcome to episode 53 of the Health, Life, and More for Women podcast. Today, I titled this episode The One Club You Can Leave Now, and I assure you, I'm not talking about those bump and grind clubs. No, but you can leave those too. I'm talking about a totally different kind of club, and I can't wait to dive in, so let's go now.
Welcome to the Health, Life, and More for Women podcast with certified life coach, mom of four, and just all-around lover of all things 80s, your host, Jennifer D'Amato. Buckle in. Let's get started.
So when I was in high school, I was very involved with different clubs, student council stuff, just really enjoyed that. And also I had planned to go to college. And one thing that we were taught was to have this well-rounded experience for school. And I would say that's true also for resume building, right? You want this well-rounded resume. So maybe you're part of some type of networking group or different clubs, if you will, within your community, organizations, all of that, right? Clubs are generally good for you, right? To be part of something. However, the club that I'm talking about today is one that you have full permission to leave now, not invite anyone else to join this club that you are in relationship with, and the end result will be a happier, healthier life. So have you already guessed the club that I'm talking about? Maybe you have, or maybe you're like, Jen's lost her ever-loving mind. Well, the club I'm talking about is the Clear Your Plate Club. Now, if you're like me, you grew up like with a full-on initiation into this club at a very young age, right? We heard our parents telling us all the time to clear our plate. You can't get up from the table until you've eaten all your dinner. You can't get up from the table until you've cleared your plate. You can't get up and go play outside until you're done eating everything in front of you. Now, I've worked with clients repeatedly on this because most of my clients grew up hearing that same message. Now, our parents did not have some sort of, malicious intent with this message. And if you are a parent out there and this is a message you are giving to your kids, I know for certain there's nothing malicious about it. There's nothing harmful that you're thinking in saying these words. I was that parent as well. I mean, I grew up in that home. I heard this message repeatedly. And as a new parent, I brought this message to the dinner table until I realized that this club was so harmful. This club is the killer of intuitive eating. Here's the problem. When you're satisfied, when you feel like, wow, I've eaten just what I need. I feel so good right now. This meal was delicious. When you're so in tune with that, which our children are until we mess with it. And then someone comes in and says, no, you're not. What you believe to be true about your satisfaction, about your fullness, about what you've eaten is actually not true. You have to go beyond that. It kills our intuitive eating nature. We're born intuitive eaters. We are born with the ability to regulate what we consume. It's until messages mess with it. And often we think of diet messages, right? We're thinking about diet culture and the lies and misinformation and harmful content they are putting out. $72 billion industry bombarding us, and we blame diet culture. And I blame diet culture. I am first in line to say, screw diet culture, screw the lies, the misinformation, the harmful content. I am right there. However, if we think about that, those of us who are parenting children, we have been directly negatively affected by diet culture lies. Clear your plate is one of those lies. We don't even think about it. We might go to what I heard growing up, which there are children starving, fill in the name of the country, right? There's someone going without, therefore you need to overconsume. That's actually the message. So I started observing my own children. I started watching them before I really was convinced of the change. This is years ago. I actually watched them. It was crazy. And I know you're going to think it's absolutely ludicrous to let a child decide how much they're going to eat. But I'm telling you, this was a powerful in-house experiment. I let them serve themselves and I let them decide when they were done. And lo and behold, they know exactly what their body needs. I think you guys have heard me say this before. If you listened to episode 49, It's Okay to Hate Kale, I outlined the fundamentals of intuitive eating, and this is a big one. Understanding your hunger is so important, but understanding your satisfaction, that I feel full, I don't feel hungry at all right now, is crucial to being an intuitive eater. So this idea that we need to clear our plate is filled with holes. Now, there are times where clearing your plate happens, and it happens intuitively. I actually had a client who, when walking through this process, came to one of our sessions and said, "Okay, Jen, here's the problem, is I keep leaving food on my plate." Like she couldn't believe it. And it's not because she was restricting. Hear me say that. She was not restricting. What she was doing was she was working so much on being in tune. I mean, so in tune with what her body needed that she felt so satisfied and there was still food left on the plate. She actually built in this habit of taking Tupperware for work for the next day out right when she sat down to eat, knowing she'd need it. And then what she started doing after that, after a while, that just stopped really working for her. She started putting less on her plate and going back for more when she wanted it. No judgment, but it blew her mind. I actually had this happen with a male client as well, where he he got to the point where he just couldn't understand, like, what's going on here that I can't finish my dinner. It was complete amazing transformation for him. But he showed up to a session and said, "Jen, I got to be honest with you. I didn't believe it." Like, he grew up, he was in his late 50s and grew up believing and hearing all the time, like he couldn't go out to play with his friends until his plate was clear. Like he could still hear his mom's voice in his ear in his 50s saying, like, "You've got to finish this. This can't go to waste. You're not doing anything until it's gone." So what did he do? After weeks of really pressing into his intuitive eating and fully embracing his level of satisfaction, he decided to test it. I love it. I love that he tested this. He comes back to a session saying, "Okay, here's what's been going on. Here's what I did. I tested it and I felt like garbage. I felt horrible clearing my plate." For him, that was the biggest shift, the biggest aha. It wasn't that he was using the Tupperware and, putting leftovers in that. It wasn't that he started putting less on his plate. He actually had to go through the process of testing the old way, the only way his brain knew how to behave. He had to say, wait a minute. He had to see what it felt like to go back there compared to what he had been experiencing for weeks and weeks. I loved it. He felt like something had gone wrong, but I believe for him, the awakening was in seeing the contrast. So going back to my daughters at my own table, when I stopped using the language of "you need to clear your plate," I already saw in just a handful of years the damage that can be done. That my children felt a sense of guilt for leaving food on the plate. They felt they were going to be wasteful. Already in a very short amount of time, I had done some damage. I had actually skewed their intuitive eating. I had skewed the way they looked at that food. It was such an awakening for me to see that if in a short period of time, just a handful of years, I can have that level of impact on how much they eat. How much greater is it when it's been 10, 20, 30 years of believing you need to clear your plate? What does that do to a person? I had been hearing it with client after client after client, but seeing how quickly it can enter in broke my heart and opened my eyes. I actually love dinner with my kids so much. I learn more from watching them than anyone else. They serve themselves. They come back if they're still hungry. They leave food on their plate. Now, the only question they ask is what to do with that food. Does it go in the trash or does it go in a leftover container? No sense of guilt for leaving food. It is the way it's supposed to be. It's why in episode 49, I shared with you that I believe toddlers are the best intuitive eaters. And again, we want to blame diet culture, and there is a level of blame that is absolutely associated. If you had not been given misinformation, and you may have misinformation because the person that was raising you had the misinformation. This is not new that diet culture has been coming in at the dinner table for so long. You can make a change starting right at your dinner table. You can stop this cycle of inviting others to come in to the Clear Your Plate Club. You can dismantle this club today. You can remove every member. You can say, we're done here. No one else is ever allowed to join because the club doesn't even exist. Now, I need to combat an argument that I hear when I share this. I need to say it because you might be thinking it already. But Jen, my kids do this and then they come back 20 minutes later, half an hour later, an hour later, and they want something else to eat. Great. They're in tune with their body. They know they need something else. So what I started doing was making available, first of all, their leftovers. So sometimes my kids have left the plate. I said, you know what? Leave it there. If you get hungry again, you can come back and finish it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It ends up getting put in with the rest of the leftovers. Sometimes they have completed their food, what was on their plate, what they ate, and they really were. They were totally satisfied, but they're growing. Their bodies are changing all the time. So they might be hungry again. I've always had carrot sticks and cheese sticks available. It's just kind of been the go-to before bed. I have allowed those since my kids were itty bitty before I ever dismantled the club. I had this available. Carrot sticks and cheese sticks. Every day does not look the same. You would probably agree with me on that in just a bigger sense. But I want you to look at every day as a different day when it comes to what your body needs or wants from food. It's the same for your kids. It's the same for your spouse. It's the same for you. Just because you weren't that hungry on Monday, you notice, gosh, I really didn't eat a ton, but I felt really satisfied. I wasn't depriving myself. And then Tuesday comes and you're famished. Your body has this amazing way to regulate what it needs. Your kids do as well. If they are truly hungry, they're going to come back and ask for food. Here's the thing, and I know I'm not really touching on this with the Clear Your Plate Club, but I want to say that when we restrict food, what happens is we want more. Like the restriction, the deprivation is going to lead them to desiring food at a higher level. So if they know food is always available, when their body signals and says, hey, I need something, there's something available to them, they're not going to have that fear. They wouldn't use that word, but I'm telling you that's what it is. There's a fear, because that's what you're experiencing, the fear that there's not going to be food available. So we overeat, if they're overeating at dinner, because they know they won't get anything later on. There's a consequence because you didn't clear your plate. I hope that's making sense. I know in my mind it's making sense because it's how we do things here, and it's how we've done things for a really long time. Creating consequences, punishments, and any sort of pain when it comes to food is going to have long-term negative effects. Withholding food at any age is going to create the belief that when there is food present, I need to overconsume because I don't know if I'm going to be allowed to have it later. So if today's the day and you are ready to say, I am done with the Clear Your Plate Club, raise that right hand and say it. I am done with the Clear Your Plate Club. For me, for my family, I will not participate. I'm out. This is freedom. This is one of the greatest things about coaching on intuitive eating because I know that my client is passing this on to whoever they're responsible for. Some of my clients, it's their own children, teenagers. Oh, mind-blowing, guys. We could talk about teenagers and food in an entire episode, just one episode. We could. But it's also being passed on to grandchildren. And it's not that idea of you go to grandma's and eat whatever the hell you want, but it's amazing what happens when you're allowed to go to grandma's and eat whatever you want without guilt, shame, or judgment. Oh, come on. All right, we're leaving the club. We're not a member anymore. We've put up our right hand. We've said we're out. Now what? I understand that this can be a struggle doing it on your own. I know that. You don't have to. I do offer a private consultation because you might be listening and going, I need this, I want this, and more. I don't want to walk through this alone. I want all the tools, all the skills of being an intuitive eater. I want to leave the Clear Your Plate Club for good and be supported and encouraged through it. That's what I do. That's exactly what I do. So if that's for you and you click in the show notes below, you can book a consultation. We'll talk about what's going on with you. We'll talk about if this is the next best step for you, for your health, if you're ready for this process, if you're ready to not only leave the Clear Your Plate Club, but you're ready to leave diet culture for good. The misinformation, the harmful content that is put out on a daily basis. If you're ready to say screw you to the $72 billion industry that's been telling you there's something wrong with you, this is for you. Book the consultation, hop into the show notes, click that today. Here's to leaving the Clear Your Plate Club once and for all. All right, ladies, can't wait to join you again here on the podcast next week. Hey ladies, I want to let you know that I've partnered with Miss Sunshine Shades. They make the most amazing blue light blocking glasses. They make them for men, women, and your kids. So I know a lot of us have our kids at home staring at computer screens right now. These glasses are exactly what you're looking for. I love mine. I use them all the time, and so do my kids, especially my kiddo who has chronic migraines, no headaches at all. And she's on that computer for homeschooling a lot. If you go into the show notes, you can grab my discount code, which is Jennifer15, and get 15% off your order today. I think you're going to love them just as much as I do.